Hey guys, welcome to the Bitcoin Fortress podcast, helping you increase your financial freedom. This is episode 152, recorded on February 2nd, 2025. This podcast is for entertainment only, it's not investing advice. Do your own homework, please. We are at block 882018, Moscow time 1025. Fees are 2212. Good time to consolidate those UTXOs. Well, we'll kick it off with the market news update outlook, get into the weekly top Bitcoin news, and then weekly featured post on Substack, shout outs, and then we'll wrap it up. So jumping right in, Wall Street closed out a tough week on Friday with a 1% retreat. But overall, for the month of January, it was a positive story with an advance of nearly 3%. This week's headlines were dominated by the rise of Chinese artificial intelligence startup DeepSeek. The performance of the firm's low-cost language model came as a sobering reality check for mega-cap U.S. firms that have poured billions into AI and forced traders to take another look at their massive valuations. In fact, the S&P 500 information technology sector was the only one of the 11 sectors to end in the red in January. Separately, a hawkish hold on interest rates by the Federal Reserve also pressured sentiment. The central bank maintained its key policy rate after three straight rate cuts to end 2024. Fed Chair Jerome Powell noted that inflationary risks had returned. The Q4 earnings season also grabbed attention with no less than four of the Mag 7 behemoths reporting their results: Microsoft, Meta Platforms, Tesla, and Apple. For the week, the benchmark S&P 500 slipped 1%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq shed 1.6%. The blue chip Dow climbed 0.3%. Looking ahead, investors will have their hands full next week with a lot of U.S. data, with Friday's jobs report being in the spotlight. The job openings and labor turnover survey for December, set to be released on Tuesday, will provide another look at the employment situation. The University of Michigan's preliminary consumer sentiment reading will be released Friday. Meanwhile, wholesale inflation in the European Union will be released on Wednesday, followed by retail sales on Thursday. Earnings season will continue to hum along with notable names like Alphabet, Palantir, Novo Nordisk, Walt Disney, and Qualcomm due to report results. All right, jumping into the Bitcoin news, we'll start with block 882000. Important news of the week from No BS Bitcoin, one of my favorite sources. The first ever Bitcoin telehash fundraiser successfully found a block. Block 881423, mined by the 256 Foundation during the telehash event, marks the first time a fundraiser has been conducted through Bitcoin hash rate. It raised 3.146 Bitcoin in rewards to advance free and open source Bitcoin mining software, firmware, and hardware solutions. And you love to see that. 256 Foundation also partnered with Block's mining team Proto. The team has donated up to 256K BZM2 ASIC chips to the foundation, allowing them to allocate these resources to emerging mining projects at their discretion. OpenSats issues its ninth wave of Bitcoin grants. The latest grantees are the Kibo, Eltor, Nutstash, and Rust Bitcoin projects. Spiral renews grant to Fediment developer Justin Mahler. Sometimes, this is a quote, sometimes there's a dev. Well, he's the dev for his time and place. He fits right in there, and that's Justin Mahler, whose GitHub places him high in the running for most prolific Fediment dev on Earth. But sometimes there's a dev, sometimes there's a dev, announced the organization. Disclosure: replacement cycling attacks on Bitcoin miners' block templates. Antoine Riard reported a variant of replacement cycling attacks that allows an attacker to censor transaction traffic from miners' block templates. This method enables the attacker to gain a dominant strategy in the distribution of Bitcoin fee rewards for block generation within the longest valid chain, effectively undermining the efforts of honest mining nodes. While the practicality of replacement cycling attacks in the real world is still an open question among the Bitcoin protocol experts, in my personal and humble opinion, this variant of replacement cycling attack is severe for the perennity of the Bitcoin ecosystem at large, even more in a post-subsidy world, said the developer. Tornado Cash developer Alexei Pertsev to be released under house arrest pending appeal. Pertsev was sentenced to 64 months in the Netherlands for writing open source privacy code on Ethereum last year. His defense has filed an appeal and is currently preparing his case. According to his wife, he will be released under house arrest with an electronic bracelet in the next 2 weeks. EFF joins the defense of Tornado Cash developer Roman Storm. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, the largest digital civil liberties organization globally, has filed an amicus brief in support of Tornado Cash developer Roman Storm's motion to reconsider the case dismissal, reports The Rage. The government's arguments are akin to claiming that Visa or MasterCard would be criminally liable based solely on receiving transaction fees whenever its customers transferred money as part of some underlying criminal activity, or akin to the government claiming it could prosecute FedEx for illegal drugs sent through the FedEx from a corner store because FedEx set up and supports a process for local pack and ship corner stores to let their customers ship via FedEx with payment remitted to FedEx, said the organization. El Salvador passes a bill to revise its Bitcoin adoption strategy. The country's legislative assembly has approved legislation to reduce the country's Bitcoin adoption strategy to satisfy the terms of a $1.4 billion loan agreement with the International Monetary Fund. The bill makes the private sector's acceptance of Bitcoin voluntary rather than mandatory. U.S. Senate approved Scott Bessent as Treasury Secretary. On Monday, the Senate voted 68 to 29 in favor of Bessent's nomination, and he will officially become a member of Trump's cabinet once he is sworn in to succeed Janet Yellen. A key focus of Trump's agenda is the continuation of tax cuts. Czech National Bank approves proposal to further explore investing in Bitcoin. The bank board will decide on further steps based on the analysis results. Any changes to reserve portfolios will be disclosed in the CNB's quarterly international reserves information and annual report, was stated in a press release. France moves forward to classify Bitcoin and digital assets as, quote, unproductive assets. French Senator Sylvie Vermeillet recently proposed a bill to classify Bitcoin and other digital assets as unproductive, suggesting they should be taxed similarly to luxury items and vacant properties. Under this proposal, which is aimed at the 2025 budget, holders who hold more than 800,000 euros worth of unproductive assets would incur an annual tax on their total value. Hmm. Sounds like communism. Bitcoin strategic reserve efforts in the US derailed by Ripple. The company has reportedly achieved, quote, significant success with its pro altcoin lobbying, leading efforts to remove the term Bitcoin from all executive orders and actions signed by Donald Trump, and halted two initiatives aimed at creating a national Bitcoin reserve. Why, those little stinkers. Poland becomes the fifth largest Bitcoin ATM country. Recently, Poland expanded its Bitcoin ATM network by adding 10 new machines, bringing the total to 219 and surpassing El Salvador to become the fifth largest ATM network globally, following the US, Canada, Australia, and Spain per Coin ATM Radar data. And there's a link in the article if you want to check it out. It's kind of fun. They have like a little map in there and stuff. Bitcoin strategic reserve updates in the States. There's quite a few here. South Dakota Representative Logan Manhart introduced two new legislative proposals to incorporate Bitcoin into the state's investment strategy. HB 1202 would allow the state to allocate 10% of its public funds to Bitcoin, while HCR 6006 urges the state investment council to explore Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation. In Missouri, Senator Travis Fitzwater introduced SB 614, which would permit the state treasurer to allocate up to 10% of public funds to Bitcoin and includes provisions to protect the rights to self-custody and mining. Illinois State Representative John M. Cabello introduced HB 1844, a Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Act aimed at establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve fund in the state treasury. Indiana State Representative Jake Teshka has brought forward HB 1322, which would pave the way for state managed investments in Bitcoin. Arizona's Senate Finance Committee has approved SB 1025, which now advances to the Senate Rules Committee before a full Senate vote. The House Economic Development Committee has approved HB 230, advancing it to the House. MicroStrategy buys another 10,107 Bitcoin. The coins were purchased for approximately $1.1 billion, bringing the company's total holdings to 471,107 Bitcoin. Sailor just keeps on stacking every week. Curl Technology Group buys $8 million worth of Bitcoin. The recent acquisition was completed at an average price of 101,695 per Bitcoin, increasing the company's total reserves to 510 coins. The European Squash Federation embraces Bitcoin, becoming the first major sports federation in Europe to integrate Bitcoin into its operations. The organization will hold Bitcoin as an asset on its balance sheet, accept Bitcoin donations using BTC Pay Server and Blink, and will facilitate the use of Bitcoin for both incoming payments and outgoing transactions, wherever it is deemed appropriate. The move was executed with the assistance of the Norwegian Bitcoin consultancy firm Satoshi Consult. By adopting Bitcoin, we are not only modernizing our financial approach, but also offering new opportunities for engagement and support within the squash community. We believe this will open doors for innovation and growth, said Otto Calvo, vice president of the European Squash Federation. Huh, squash. I'll have to look into that. Nasdaq files for in-kind redemptions for BlackRock's iShares Spot Bitcoin ETF. Nasdaq has submitted a proposal for a rule change to the Securities and Exchange Commission, seeking permission for the in-kind creation and redemption of shares for the BlackRock iShares Bitcoin Trust. Initially, when the SEC approved spot Bitcoin ETFs, including IBIT last January, it allowed these funds to be launched with cash redemption rather than with Bitcoin. Don't get too excited though, folks. It's only the banksters that get to do that. Authorized whatever parties. The CBOE BZX exchange has proposed in-kind creations and redemptions for the ARC21 shares Bitcoin ETF filed with the US SEC on January 27th. If approved, it would allow authorized participants, again, that's the word, authorized participants, just think of that as the banksters, to engage in in-kind transactions. So, not for the plebs. If you really want Bitcoin, just buy it and hold it yourself. Don't do the ETF. Tether and Lightning Labs team up to bring USDT to Lightning Network. We have a article that goes in a little bit more detail on this later. The integration will utilize Taproot assets, a protocol that enables interoperability between stablecoins and a range of other assets issued on Bitcoin and moved via the Lightning rails. Tether reports $13 billion in net profits for 2024, according to a Q4 year-end attestation published on Friday. The stablecoin issuer generated $13 billion in net profits for 2024, including $6 billion in Q4 alone. Tether also saw its direct and indirect exposure to U.S. Treasuries reach a record high of $113 billion, and its excess reserves soared past $7 billion, marking a 36% year-over-year increase. The firm also increased its Bitcoin holdings to nearly 84,000 Bitcoin, valued at $7.8 billion at the end of 2024. Huh. It's like a new model for a bank in cyberspace without all the people and without the banksters. Interesting. UTXO Management, Sora Ventures, and others acquired HK Asia Holdings Limited. The public company listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange now plans to rebrand as Moon Inc. and signals its intention to explore cryptocurrency investments and Web 3.0 innovation, reports Bitcoin Magazine. Arkansas State Senate rejects mining ban near military facilities. The state's governors have voted against a proposal to restrict Bitcoin mining operations within a 30-mile radius of military facilities, including hospitals and military clinics, reports Atlas 21. Russia's largest grid operator, Rossetti, to utilize underused energy for Bitcoin mining. The state-owned company's strategy involves optimizing existing energy facilities that currently operate below their maximum capacity. Rossetti has confirmed that it already has the necessary technical infrastructure in place to effectively manage the loads of mining facilities. Stolen IDs spark $1.9 million in losses in Malaysia. 45 homeowners and business operators in Malaysia have been confronted with power bills amounting to $1.9 million after some tenants illegally mined Bitcoin using stolen identities of these property owners, reports the Miner Mag. Grayscale launches an ETF tracking public Bitcoin miners. The fund offers investors exposure to the broader Bitcoin mining sector, with holdings in 23 companies involved in proprietary Bitcoin mining or hosting businesses, as well as chip giants Intel and NVIDIA. Digital Currency Group has formed Fortitude Mining. This new entity comes from spinning off the proprietary Bitcoin mining division of its subsidiary Foundry, confirming earlier reports by Blockspace Media. Trump's executive order sideswipes freedom tools, according to the EFF. The executive order, called Reevaluating and Realigning United States Foreign Aid, has led the State Department to immediately suspend contracts with hundreds of organizations supported through its programs, including those from the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. This impacts many freedom technologies that use cryptography to fight censorship and protect freedom of speech, privacy, and anonymity. While limited waivers have been issued, they do not appear to cover open source internet freedom technologies, reports the EFF. Hmm. DARPA to launch pre-crime AML program. DARPA, okay. DARPA has unveiled plans for a pre-crime anti-money laundering program designed to prevent money laundering before it occurs and is likely to be applied to digital assets. This initiative employs contentious predictive policing methods, which have been criticized for potentially exacerbating arbitrary discrimination. If successful, A3ML would make it prohibitively expensive for our adversaries to transfer illicit value through the global financial system. The technical hypothesis: illicit finance tactics, techniques, and procedures can be algorithmically extracted from diverse data sources and represented in a generic shareable form, said 3ML program manager David Dewhurst. Yeah, I don't think I like that. Femex exchange losses climbed to $85 million following a recent hack. The Singapore-based cryptocurrency exchange experienced a breach of its hot wallets on January 23rd. The initial estimate of stolen cryptocurrency was $29 million, but the figure was raised to $73 million on Friday. By Sunday, the estimates rose once more, with MetaMask Taylor Monahan calculating the value of the stolen assets to be at least $85 million. The attack constitutes the largest centralized exchange hack of 2025 so far. So far. And it's early in the year. And get your coins off the exchange, people. No One's CEO Ray Youssef disclosed the $8 million exploit that occurred on January 2nd. Regulated peer-to-peer cryptocurrency trading platform No One's experienced a security breach earlier this month, resulting in the loss of around $8 million in assets, as stated by CEO Ray Youssef in a recent post. Thorchain halts withdrawals amid 200 million insolvency. The Interblockchain Settlements Protocol has paused Bitcoin and Ether withdrawals from its lending and savers programs for 90 days to mitigate a potential insolvency risk. The protocol currently holds around 200 million in Bitcoin and ETH liabilities that it cannot cover without risking a significant drop in the value of its native shitcoin, Rune. Thorchain's primary service, cross-chain swaps, is reportedly unaffected. KuCoin to pay over $297 million fine and exit the U.S. market. The exchange has pleaded guilty to operating an unlicensed money transmitting business and will pay over $297 million in penalties. As part of the plea, KuCoin will exit the U.S. market for at least 2 years, and founders Chun Gan and Kei Tang will depart the company. X has partnered with Visa to launch X Money. Visa has been announced as the first partner for the X Money account service, which is slated to launch later this year. According to X CEO Linda Yaccarino, this service will include an in platform digital wallet and support for peer to peer payments connected to users' debit cards and bank accounts. No thanks. I'm not on X anyway, but I would not want that. No, thank you. Windows BitLocker vulnerability exploited in randomization attack, identified as CVE 2025-21210. A critical vulnerability in Windows BitLocker exposes the AES XTS encryption mode to a new randomization attack, enabling attackers with physical access to alter ciphertext blocks and cause sensitive data to be stored in plaintext, highlighting the increasing sophistication of attacks on full disk encryption systems. So that's something to pay attention to if you are privacy focused and you encrypt your data on your computer. U.S. Corporate Transparency Act remains blocked despite the Supreme Court decision. The Supreme Court overturned a lower court order that had been blocking the enforcement of the CTA, which requires millions of companies, mostly small businesses, ironically, to disclose the personally identifiable information of their owners. To FinCEN, the Eye of Sauron. However, a separate national injunction issued earlier this month by a federal judge remains in place and continues to block the law's implementation. Therefore, for now, registration with FinCEN remains voluntary. But a lot of people are just doing it anyway because they're afraid of the IRS and FinCEN. The eye. The eye is upon you. Budapest Bitcoin Conference to take place on August 8th through 9th, 2025. For more information, check out the event's website, and there's a link. And that wraps up the important news of the week. Quite a lot going on there. Moving on to Hodler's Digest for January 26th to February 1st. As always, we will skip over the shitcoinery unless it's funny. Binance claims no special relationship with Hamas, argues to dismiss lawsuit. A federal judge has not yet issued a ruling in a motion to dismiss a lawsuit filed by families of victims affected by the 2023 Hamas attack on Israel against cryptocurrency exchange Binance and its former CEO Changpeng CZ Zhao. On January 30th, the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York, lawyers representing Binance presented oral arguments in connection with the company's motion to dismiss the family's complaint filed on January 2024. According to reporting from Inner City Press, the exchange's legal team argued crypto was not inherently dangerous, pushing back against allegations that Binance facilitated transactions benefiting Hamas. There was no special relationship between Hamas and Binance, said a lawyer for the exchange. Well, they should probably sue the US government and the Federal Reserve because and because that's they're using dollars, people. They're not using crypto. Kraken restores staking services in US after 2-year hiatus. Yeah, I don't care about that. SBF's parents seek pardon from President Trump. Oh, this is rich. The parents of former FTX CEO Sam SBF's Bankman Fried are reportedly exploring the possibility of a presidential pardon for their son, who was sentenced to 25 years in prison last March. According to a January 30th Bloomberg report citing anonymous sources, Bankman-Fried's parents have already met with lawyers and other figures close to the Trump administration to determine whether clemency was possible. Once considered to be the golden child of crypto, Bankman-Fried's house of cards fell apart in late 2022 when FTX couldn't fulfill customer withdrawals. The exchange collapsed in a matter of days, revealing a business built on fraud, embezzlement, and misuse of customer funds. Well, he needs to do some time. Come on. Really? Oh, Elon Musk's dad plans a $200 million raise with Musk It meme coin. Oh my gosh. This is bizarre. Elon Musk's father may be the next influential figure to raise funds through a meme coin amid growing interest in celebrity-backed meme tokens. Well, at least it's out there. I mean, totally rug pulls. It's obvious. This is where we've arrived. It just, just 100% theft. They're not even trying to say that they're going to do something better than Bitcoin or that there's some business use case. It's just a total meme. Retail investor interest returned to meme coins after President Donald Trump launched the official Trump meme coin on January 18th and the official Melania meme token on January 19th on the Solana network. Joining the ranks, Elon Musk's father, Errol Musk, is reportedly looking to launch his own meme coin token project called Musket. Musk's father hopes to raise as much as 200 million from the meme coin project, which he plans to use to support a for-profit think tank called the Musk Institute, he told Fortune. Oh boy. MicroStrategy announces pricing of Strike preferred stock offering. MicroStrategy announced the pricing of its perpetual Strike preferred stock offering at a public listing price of $80 per share and will issue the corporate securities on February 5th. The company forecasts 563.4 million in revenue from the tranche of perpetual Strike preferred stock, which features an 8% coupon and a liquidation value of $100. According to the announcement, the proceeds from the sale will go toward acquiring more Bitcoin and covering operating expenses. MicroStrategy continues to lean into its 21-21 plan of issuing $21 billion in equity and $21 billion in fixed income securities to finance Bitcoin acquisitions and has become the most prominent Bitcoin holding firm. Let's see if there's anything else worth reading. Um, Tether disappointed with rushed actions on Mika-driven USDT delisting in Europe. I guess they got kicked out of Europe. Stablecoin operator Tether addressed European cryptocurrency regulations amid exchanges like Crypto.com preparing to delist its USDT stablecoin in Europe tomorrow. Tether expressed disappointment over market developments in Europe amid changes triggered by the enforcement of the European Union's markets in crypto assets framework. Crypto.com, a global crypto exchange, confirmed on January 29th that it will start delisting Tether's USDT stablecoin and 9 other tokens on January 31st to comply with MiCA regulations. It is disappointing to see the rushed actions brought on by statements which do little to clarify the basis for such moves, a spokesperson for Tether told Cointelegraph. China convicts BKEX staff for illegal gambling via crypto contracts. A Chinese court ruled the cryptocurrency exchange BKEX engaged in illegal gambling through its contract trading platform and sentenced several employees and agents to prison for their roles in the operation. The People's Court of Pingjiang County, Hunan Province, determined on January 29th that BKEX's contract transactions functioned as a form of online gambling, and those involved were accomplices in the crime of opening a casino. According to the ruling, BKEX allowed users to place bets using USDT, a stablecoin pegged to the US dollar, and apply high leverage, up to 1,000x in some cases, to wager on the price movements of Bitcoin, Ether, and other cryptocurrencies. Well, for once, I agree with something China did. That is for sure gambling, people. Bitcoin gambling. Well, this one's kind of interesting. Gemini won't hire MIT grads unless university drops ex-SEC chair Gensler. Crypto exchange Gemini won't be hiring any graduates from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology unless the university drops former U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission chair Gary Gensler from his teaching role. As long as MIT has any association with Gary Gensler, Gemini will not hire any graduates from the school, Gemini co-founder and CEO Tyler Winklevoss said in a January 30th post on X. He added the crypto exchange also wouldn't hire interns for its summer internship program. Gemini has sparred with the SEC since January 2023 after the agency sued the firm alongside Genesis, accusing them of selling unregistered securities through the Gemini Earn platform. Genesis paid $21 million in fines in March 2024 to settle the claims. Wow, payback for sure. And that wraps up the Hodler's Digest. Moving on, an article from Bitcoin.com News. This was posted 3 days ago. Bitcoin market cycle reflects structural similarities to 2015 to 2018, says Glassnode. Saw this circulating a little bit on Nostr with an interesting chart. Chart is in the article if you want to check it out yourself. So, what's this all about? The leading cryptocurrencies' price gains have moderated progressively across successive cycles, signaling an evolution toward a more seasoned market, the latest Glassnode study notes. Retracements in this cycle closely mirror those observed between 2015 and 2017, with corrections consistently hovering near Fibonacci thresholds of 10%, 10.1% to 23.6%. Historical precedents hint at Bitcoin approaching a pivotal inflection point akin to prior bull market acceleration stages. Capital inflows measured via realized capitalization have expanded 2.1-fold this cycle, a marked contrast to the 5.7-fold peak of its predecessor. Glassnode further observes this growth pattern aligning with mid-2010s trends. Metrics imply euphoric investor behavior remains subdued, leaving room for additional market escalation. Centralized exchange reserves have dwindled to 2.7 million Bitcoin since mid 2024, down from 3.1 million. The analysts attribute this not to scarcity pressures, but to migration toward ETF custodians, particularly Coinbase managed wallets. When combining exchange and ETF holdings, the aggregate supply remains steady near 3 million Bitcoin, challenging narratives of imminent scarcity. The report explains that historically, bull markets thrive when veteran investors gradually transfer assets to newcomers. Glassnode reveals 1.1 million Bitcoin shifted from long-term to short-term wallets during Bitcoin's climb past 100,000. This dynamic highlights the critical role of fresh capital in maintaining upward price trajectories. While Bitcoin's macro trend remains decidedly bullish, Glassnode cautions that intense distribution phases often precede periods of waning demand. Should historical rhythms persist, the market may ultimately pivot towards accumulation-driven stability rather than speculative trading frenzies. And then again, they have a pretty interesting chart in here that lays out the different cycles. The 2011 to 2015 cycle, which was extreme. Um, the 2015 to 2018 cycle, which was more of a kind of a slow ramp up, followed by a peak, and then obviously a retracement, and then the 2018 to 2022 cycle, which was kind of flattish, as we all remember. So anyway, check out the chart; it's kind of cool. Next articles from Cointelegraph. This was posted today from it's entitled Bitcoin Analysts Warn of 95K Bear Trap Despite Record $102,000 monthly close. Bitcoin may be headed to a bear trap below 95,000 despite staging its first monthly close above 100,000. Bitcoin fell below 100,000 psychological mark on February 2nd for the first time since January 27th. Cointelegraph Markets Pro data shows. And there's a nice little chart in here. The decline comes amid inflation concerns after President Donald Trump imposed import tariffs on goods from China, Canada, and Mexico. Which again, I just really struggle with this. Like, how can the market look at that and say, oh, inflation, sell Bitcoin? It should be the opposite. Anyway, however, the dip could be the start of a wider correction, potentially taking Bitcoin to 95,000, according to Ryan Lee, chief analyst at BitGet Research. So sell your chairs, buy Bitcoin. On the downside, the 95,000 range remains a critical support area. The interplay between labor market trends, Fed policy expectations, and market sentiment will be the main catalyst to monitor in the coming weeks, Lee told Cointelegraph. However, Bitcoin could see more upside in February if next week's labor market data points to a quote sluggish economy, added the analyst. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics is set to publish its U.S. labor market report on February 7th. Weakening labor market data may strengthen the case for a rate cut by the Federal Reserve, which creates more supportive environment for Bitcoin, according to Lee. However, Bitcoin recorded its first monthly close above 100,000 in crypto history in January. Bitcoin closed the month above 102,412, which is over 6% higher than its previous record monthly close of 96,441, registered in November 2024. Some analysts believe Bitcoin's current correction may only be a bear trap, including popular crypto analyst Sensei, who shared the below chart in a February 2nd post. And they're showing a nice little chart. A bear trap is the form of coordinated but controlled selling that creates a temporary dip in an asset's price. It typically comprises a significant correction during a long-term uptrend. Despite the potential for a short-term correction, Bitcoin's prospects remain bullish for the rest of 2025, especially after spot Bitcoin exchange traded funds surpassed a record 125 billion milestone just over a year after they first debuted for trading in the US on January 11th, 2024. Analyst predictions for the rest of the 2025 market cycle range from 160,000 to above 180,000. And that wraps that one up. Moving on, next article is from Decrypt. This was posted on January 26th. The 10 public companies with the biggest Bitcoin portfolios. Thought this would be an interesting one to go over. For many years, the idea that publicly traded corporations might buy Bitcoin for their reserves was considered laughable. The top cryptocurrency was considered too volatile, too fringe to be embraced by any serious business. That taboo has well and truly broken, with a number of major institutional investors buying up Bitcoin in recent years. The floodgates first opened when cloud software company MicroStrategy bought $425 million worth of Bitcoin in August and September 2020. Others followed suit, including payments processor Block and electric car manufacturer Tesla. Per Bitcoin treasuries, public companies holding Bitcoin now account for 2.8% of the total supply of 21 million Bitcoin. These are the biggest holders as of this writing. Number one is MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy, a prominent business analytics platform turned Bitcoin treasury company, has adopted Bitcoin as its primary reserve asset. The firm, which produces mobile software and provides cloud-based services, has aggressively pursued a Bitcoin buying spree, scooping up millions of dollars worth of the cryptocurrency. As of this writing, in January 2025, it holds 461,000 Bitcoin in reserve, equivalent to over $48 billion worth, and more than 2% of the total number of Bitcoin that will ever be issued. At one point, MicroStrategy executive chairman Michael Saylor said he was buying $1,000 in Bitcoin every second. In the company's Q1 2024 earnings call, Saylor claimed that the company's adoption of a Bitcoin strategy has enabled it to deliver 10x to 30x the performance of rival enterprise software companies in the business intelligence sector. Unlike other executives who typically shy away from discussing their personal investments, Saylor made it public that he personally purchased 17,732 Bitcoin, currently worth over $1.85 billion, and still holds them as of September 2024. It's something of an about face for the MicroStrategy co-founder who in 2013 claimed that Bitcoin's days were numbered. We're at the beginning of the stage of rapid institutional adoption of digital property in the form of Bitcoin, Saylor said during the company's Q1 2024 earnings call. He added that in the future, Bitcoin won't compete against other crypto assets, but against gold, art, equities, real estate, bonds, and other types of store of value money in wealth creation, wealth preservation, and the capital markets. MicroStrategy plans to buy even more Bitcoin in the near future as it's in the midst of raising a planned $42 billion to do just that. And Saylor is making the pitch to other public companies as well, like Microsoft, shareholders ultimately voted against the proposal. Number two, Marathon Digital Holdings. Bitcoin mining company Marathon Digital, unsurprisingly, is also a large holder of Bitcoin with 44,394 Bitcoin in its corporate treasury, according to its most recent update in December 2024. That's worth more than $4.6 billion at today's prices. The company, which aims to build the largest Bitcoin mining operation in North America at one of the lowest energy costs, originated as a patent holding firm and was often referred to as Patent Troll before its pivot into crypto mining. As of July 2024, Marathon Digital runs more than 250,000 Bitcoin miners capable of producing 31.5 exahash per second with an average operational hash rate of 26.3 exahash per second. The firm noted that it is accelerating its growth plans following the 2024 Bitcoin halving in a bid to mitigate the impact of receiving half the Bitcoin rewards per each successfully mined block. The firm has said that it aimed to double the scale of its mining operations in 2024. Company increased its revenue by 35% to 132 million in Q3 2024, up from 98 million in Q2. It recently raised nearly $2 billion via convertible notes, most of which has been used to buy Bitcoin. Number three is Riot Platforms, another crypto mining outfit. US-based Riot Platforms holds 17,722 Bitcoin, worth about $1.85 billion at today's prices. With its valuation surging from below 200 million in 2020 to highs of over 6 billion in 2021, the Nasdaq listed company went on an aggressive expansion drive. In April 2021, it spent $650 million on a 1 gigawatt Bitcoin mining facility in Texas, eventually expanding further in 2022 before rebranding to Riot Platforms to diversify its business model in 2023. In 2024, it warned shareholders that there was no guarantee the Bitcoin halving would improve profitability, and while Riot shares traded briefly around $18 in the early part of the year, the stock fell gradually before ranging below $10 from August until late October. After such, it gained alongside a resurgence for Bitcoin mining stocks and the broader cryptocurrency market after Donald Trump was named president-elect in November. The company also reached a settlement with Bitcoin mining firm Bitfarms as it attempted a hostile takeover of the rival in 2024. Number four is Galaxy Digital Holdings. Crypto-focused merchant bank Galaxy Digital Holdings holds an estimated 11,242 Bitcoin, according to data from a November 2024 investor release, based on having $711 million worth of Bitcoin as of September 30th, 2024. At the current price, as of this writing, that amount of Bitcoin is worth about $1.18 billion. Founded by Michael Novogratz in January 2018, the company provides asset management and digital infrastructure services to institutions looking to gain access to digital assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Novogratz is unsurprisingly a keen advocate for Bitcoin, arguing in March 2024 that the cryptocurrency would never dip below $50,000 again, and months later predicting that it would soar to $100,000 by the end of the year. Galaxy Digital is one of a number of firms managed managing a U.S. spot Bitcoin ETF, following their landmark approval by the SEC in January 2024. Recently, Novogratz indicated that Trump winning the presidential election was the most important day for crypto. Number 5 is Hut 8 Corp. Canadian Bitcoin mining firm Hut 8 holds 10,096 Bitcoin, worth more than $1 billion at current prices, according to its most recent update from December 2024. In June 2021, the company was listed on the Nasdaq Global Select Market under the HUT ticker, with the company's SEC filing noting that it's committed to growing shareholder value by increasing the number and value of our Bitcoin holdings. The company also explained that it generates fiat income by leveraging its reserve of self-mined and held Bitcoin via yield account arrangements with leading digital asset prime brokerages, which I'm a little skeptical of personally. In November 2023, the firm merged with fellow mining company US Bitcoin, with the post-merger firm billing itself as an energy infrastructure company targeting Bitcoin mining and data centers. Those mining centers are based at 6 sites across Alberta, Texas, and New York, with a reported 7.5 exahash per second of installed self-mining capacity. Company announced a $150 million investment last June to expand its AI compute demands, and its stock nearly doubled in the weeks following the presidential election, bringing its market cap to more than $2 billion as of this writing. Number 6 is Tesla. Electric vehicle manufacturer Tesla joined the ranks of companies holding Bitcoin in December 2020, with an SEC filing revealing that the company invested an aggregate $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. Tesla sold 10% of its Bitcoin holdings in Q1 2021, according to CEO Elon Musk. This was to prove liquidity of Bitcoin as an alternative to holding cash on balance sheet. Company's Bitcoin play followed months of speculation after CEO Elon Musk took to Twitter to discuss the cryptocurrency. In late 2020, MicroStrategy's Saylor offered to share his playbook for Bitcoin investing with Musk after arguing that a move into Bitcoin would be doing Tesla shareholders a $100 billion favor. However, Musk and Tesla have had an on and off relationship with Bitcoin after announcing that Tesla would accept payments in Bitcoin for its products and services in March 2021. Just 2 months later, the CEO abruptly announced that the company would no longer accept the cryptocurrency for payments. Citing the rapidly increasing use of fossil fuels for Bitcoin mining and transactions, Musk revealed that the company wouldn't be selling any of its Bitcoin holdings and would consider using it for transactions again once mining transitions to a more sustainable energy. He later clarified that the company would resume using Bitcoin for transactions once miners are using 50% clean energy. In July 2022, the company revealed that it had sold approximately 75% of its Bitcoin in its Q2 2022 quarterly update, with its balance sheet showing sales from digital assets amounting to $936 million. In a call with analysts, Musk stated that the firm did so in order to shore up its cash position in the face of uncertainty around COVID lockdowns. As of January 2025, the company holds 9,720 Bitcoin in its portfolio, worth just over $1 billion at current prices, per BitcoinTreasuries.org. It remains to be seen whether Tesla will add to its balance sheet, but Musk has said that he's open to increasing its Bitcoin holdings in the future. Musk is perhaps best known as a keen advocate for Dogecoin. Tesla has enabled Dogecoin purchases for some merchandise, plus Musk is now leading the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, spawning a new meme coin and a swift movement upward for Dogecoin, a shitcoin. Number 7, Coinbase Global. Arguably the best known crypto firm in this list, crypto exchange Coinbase went public in a landmark direct listing on the NASDAQ in April 2021. Ahead of its listing, February 2021, Coinbase revealed that it held $230 million in Bitcoin on its balance sheet. As of its September 2024 10Q filing, it holds 9,363 Bitcoin in its treasury, worth around $980 million. The company's stock has charged back towards its previous all-time high in the wake of the 2024 presidential election, and it continues to innovate, with Bitcoin recently announcing its own wrapped Bitcoin product, CBBTC. Coinbase also recently restarted Bitcoin lending services. CBBTC is a shitcoin, folks. Number 8 is CleanSpark. U.S. Bitcoin mining firm CleanSpark holds 9,297 Bitcoin, worth around $975 million at today's prices. Ahead of the 2024 Bitcoin halving, the firm expanded its operations, snapping up 3 Bitcoin mining facilities in Mississippi for $19.8 million and adding up to 2.4 exahash per second to its mining capacity. The company also added a third facility in Dalton, Georgia to its lineup with a further zero point 0.8 exahash per second. In June 2024, CleanSpark revealed that it had mined 417 Bitcoin in the month of May, claiming to have outperformed industry expectations. In its first full month of production following the halving, the company added that it plans to further expand to a site in Wyoming in the coming days. The company's stock, like that of its peers, nearly doubled in the weeks following the election, valuing the company at more than $3 billion at the time of writing. Number 9, Block Inc. Alongside Tesla, Square parent company Block lit the fuse for institutional investment in Bitcoin with its October 2020 investment of $50 million in the cryptocurrency. As of the end of September 2024, the firm holds 8,363 Bitcoin, worth about $876 million. The investment is perhaps unsurprising considering that CEO Jack Dorsey is an enthusiastic advocate for Bitcoin, even running his own Bitcoin node and describing the coin's white paper as poetry. At the time of its initial investment, the company described it as part of Square's ongoing commitment to Bitcoin, noting that the company's plans to assess its aggregate investment in Bitcoin relative to other investments on an ongoing basis. The firm has invested in Bitcoin technology, launching its own Bitcoin wallet and developing a Bitcoin mining ASIC chip. In April 2024, its payment services subsidiary Square announced that it would enable businesses using its Cash App product to automatically convert a portion of daily sales into Bitcoin. In May 2024, the firm announced that it would reinvest 10% of its profits from Bitcoin-related products and services into Bitcoin in a dollar cost average or DCA purchase program. Number 10, Bitcoin Group SE. Germany-based venture capital firm Bitcoin Group SE brings up the rear of the list with approximate Bitcoin holdings of 3,678 based on a recent financial update worth $385 million. Its investments include crypto exchange Bitcoin.de and Futurum Bank, which merged in October 2020 to form Germany's first crypto bank. The move followed the German parliament's decision to enable banks to sell and store cryptocurrencies, with Bitcoin Group SE Managing Director Marco Bodewin highlighting the opportunity to introduce the bank's institutional investors to crypto's high returns and safety features. Germany sold the majority of its confiscated Bitcoin holdings throughout the summer. Yes, they did. Paper hands. Bad. And that wraps up that article. Next up from Crypto Potato, this was updated on January 31st. A little more detail on something we talked about earlier. USDT expands to Bitcoin's Lightning Network, aiming for faster and cheaper transactions. Stablecoin issuer Tether has announced the integration of USDT into Bitcoin's ecosystem, including its base layer and the Lightning Network. This integration utilizes Taproot Assets, a protocol powered by Bitcoin's Taproot upgrade and developed by Lightning Labs. The announcement was made during a fireside chat at the first Plan B forum in El Salvador by Tether CEO Paulo Arduino and Lightning Labs CEO Elizabeth Stark. In a statement, Arduino said, Tether is committed to driving innovation in the Bitcoin ecosystem. By enabling USDT on the Lightning Network, we are not only reinforcing Bitcoin's foundational principles of decentralization and security, but also creating practical solutions for remittances, payments, and other financial applications that demand both speed and reliability. In its official blog post, Tether and Lightning Labs plans to continue working together to develop the ecosystem in a bid to support adoption and provide resources for developers and users. With USDT becoming operational on the Lightning Network, the integration may contribute to expanding Bitcoin's use in financial applications. Lightning Labs Stark and Business Development Director Ryan Gentry explained that once the integration is complete, users will be able to make cross-border transactions with USDT on the Lightning Network with fast settlement and reduced transaction costs compared to other networks. Businesses and payment providers already use Lightning for Bitcoin transactions will have the option to incorporate USDT without modifying their existing infrastructure. The integration is also expected to support machine to machine transactions, potentially enabling applications such as AI driven payments and interactions between autonomous systems. Additionally, USDT on Bitcoin could contribute to the expansion of financial applications within the latter's decentralized finance and tokenization ecosystem, including lending, trading, and on chain financial instruments. The latest development comes 2 weeks after Tether announced its plans to move to El Salvador after securing a digital asset service provider license. As the only country where Bitcoin is legal tender, El Salvador introduced the Chivo wallet with Lightning Network support in September 2021. While merchants were initially obligated to accept Bitcoin, this requirement was later lifted as part of a $1.4 billion loan agreement with the International Monetary Fund. And finally, a quick article here from BitcoinNews.com. U.S. Marshals miss Senator Lummis's report deadline on seized Bitcoin. Uh-oh. Senator Cynthia Lummis, the Republican from Wyoming, had previously asked the U.S. Marshals Service to explain what they're doing with nearly 70,000 Bitcoin seized from the Silk Road case, and now they missed the deadline to provide answers. The government agency's silence on the matter raises uncertainty about whether they are making decisions in the best interest of taxpayers. The U.S. Marshals Service is responsible for the assets seized in criminal investigations, including Bitcoin. Since 2014, they've sold off over 195,000 Bitcoin, often for pennies on the dollar. One big example was in 2017 when they sold 140,000 Silk Road Bitcoin for $330 each. That huge stash is now worth over $14 billion. Lummis is opposing the sale of another 69,370 Bitcoin from Silk Road, worth around $6.9 billion. She thinks the U.S. is making a huge financial mistake by selling instead of holding them as an asset. The historical record of Bitcoin sales by the U.S. Marshals Service, resulting in over $17 billion in unrealized value for taxpayers, serves as a stark reminder of the cost of hasty liquidation decisions, Lummis wrote to the agency. Lummis's concerns come as U.S. President Donald Trump has announced a national digital asset stockpile plan. He wants the U.S. government to keep all the Bitcoin it has or acquires instead of selling it. He noted that the sale of 69,370 Bitcoin contradicts Trump's plan. The timing and aggressive pursuit of the sale raises serious questions about whether proper consideration has been given to the long term strategic interests of the United States. The Republican senator is not just opposing the sale, she wants the U.S. to buy more. She introduced the Bitcoin Act, which would require the U.S. Treasury to buy 200,000 Bitcoin per year until it has 1 million Bitcoin. That would give the government 5% of the total Bitcoin in the world. Senator Lummis and other lawmakers think Bitcoin could help the U.S. economy and hedge against inflation and national debt, which is now over $36 trillion. Other countries are already looking into this. El Salvador has gone a step further and made Bitcoin legal tender while building an actual Bitcoin reserve. Some U.S. states like Texas and Oklahoma are considering state level Bitcoin reserves to protect against the devaluation of the U.S. dollar. Lummis is going after the U.S. Marshals Service, but she's also taking on the FDIC for allegedly targeting Bitcoin businesses. The FDIC is reportedly pressuring banks to cut ties with Bitcoin companies, just as it did during the Obama era's Operation Choke Point. Whistleblowers say the agency destroyed important documents related to its oversight of digital assets. Lummis is demanding transparency, saying if documents were destroyed intentionally, criminal referrals would be made. The FDIC's alleged actions are unacceptable and illegal, she wrote, emphasizing all digital asset records dated 2022 and later should be preserved. Lummis is leading the charge in Washington and is chair of the new Senate Subcommittee on Digital Assets with Senator Tim Scott. He looks to introduce bipartisan bills to regulate the Bitcoin industry, protect consumers, and build a national Bitcoin reserve. Finally, I wanted to highlight this week's featured post on Bitcoin Fortress Substack, Top 10 Reasons to Avoid Altcoins. I wanted to use the word shitcoins. I should have done that. And why Bitcoin only? So check that out. There's a link in the show notes along with all the other articles that I reviewed. Also, the weekly top boost on Fountain at God's Death with 536 sats. Thank you, sir. And thank you for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please like and leave a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss an episode. You can also follow my Substack at bitcoinfortress.substack.com. Please subscribe if you like it. And you can follow me on Nostr. My NPub is in the show notes. I am Nostr only. No other social media for me. Thank you very much. And with that, I will talk to y'all next week. Bye bye.